Hey, it's Terraform Time. I'm Jose Antonio Reyes, Senior Innovation Engineer at PagerDuty, and also the Terraform Provider Maintainer. Terraform Time, it's been streamed every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time and 1 p.m. Pacific Time at twitch.com/PagerDuty. And we are also streaming at PagerDuty's official YouTube channel too. You can contact us at our community email at community-team@pagerduty.com or join to my forums at community.pagerduty.com. Before moving on, I want to make a quick reminder about our next Terraform Roundtable, which is going to be celebrated on January 2024, more specifically at January 9. And this is the link for you to register and join us on the next Terraform Roundtable. Okay, without further ado, let's talk about today's main topic, which is leveraging service standards for PagerDuty best incident response configuration, which has to do with using service standards, which are an indicators that you can or you maybe have noticed in your service directory, your PagerDuty service directory. Let me give you a glimpse of that. PagerDuty. Oh, this is my PagerDuty Sandbox account. If I switch to my service directory, this only have two services, which doesn't follow almost any of the standards. This one only only meets 2 out of 9 standards, and this on just one standard. So this standards met indicator indicates you how is your technical services configured, or how are those technical services following the best practices for configuring and yes, a well configured technical service that will help you to resolve and tackle your incident response workflow. You will notice that give me a second, please. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay, you will notice that these services, these standards, have to do with minimal services configuration. That if you manage to meet them, your technical service will be able to have you using this, like for example, to have uh, to be very well described. The escalation policy will have at least one backup from the one backup um, to to resolve any incident. It's very recommended to have an add-on like an Slack or um, a conference bridge. Um, Only send high urgencies. Okay, a service should not have to be only sending high urgency incidents, because then all will be urgencies or high priority urgencies. Service should have at least an integration unless, yeah, it's very recommended to have at least one integration. This is not like mandatory. The service should have at least one business service dependency, and also technical service dependencies and API integration. Well, all these standard recommendations are not mandatory, and you can, of course, make exceptions to some services that you maybe don't need to meet some specific standards, because um, talking about the dependency between the services, maybe the service that you are trying to set up is the last in a chain of services that support each other till they support a business case. So in that case, it's good to um, add a section to the standard to not consider that service for the standard of having at least one technical service dependency. So I already shared with you. Yes, yes, the service standard blog post uh, introducing this PagerDuty feature. But now, because we are on Terraform Time, let's switch to my development environment and talk about using this with Terraform. So here I have um, Terraform workspace. Give me a second. I have already a Terraform workspace, which is going to set up two PagerDuty services. In fact, yes, it's okay to spin up these two PagerDuty services and an escalation policy, which will be the one attached to those PagerDuty services, a team, and an user. So I'm going to just apply this Terraform configuration with Terraform apply, auto approve. This is applying this Terraform configuration here at the right. Okay, the configuration was created. If I refresh here my service directory, well, look at this. We just created this service, the DB service TF local and web service TF local. These two services, from 9 standards, they only met 2 out of 9. And for the web service one, during this Terraform Time episode, I will try to meet the most of these standards, but in my Terraform configuration. So if I switch back to my Terraform configuration, which is this for the web service TF local, going to put it like this to keep watching the standards and how they change. So I'm going to now let me check what are the standards not met. Service has an escalation policy with two or more unique levels. Well, let's look at this escalation policy that is attached to this um, web service, to this technical service, the web one. Okay, is this. And I can notice here that I only have one level, which is this rule, but I only have one user. So in order to solve this, first, in a real environment, I will need at least two persons in charge of being part of this escalation policy, which could be um, the person on call and um, the manager too. But okay, I know if the team doesn't meet that condition, I mean, it's only one person responsible for taking care of the incidents. We will have to add an section to this standard because we won't be able to meet it. But in this case, we can um, we can just hypothetically say that we do have the people to meet this standard. So I'm going to copy this and say that this is a new user, just with the number TF user local 2. Now I have two users, and I can add a new level to this escalation policy, telling that the second level is for local user 2. Now, if I apply this, let me, yes, put this like this other way. Terraform plan. Okay, I'm adding this user and immediately adding the user to the escalation policy. So I'm going to apply this. And after a few seconds, the change is applied. If I refresh this, the standard, okay, the standard is met. Okay, now we have the service has a description. The service has an escalation policy with two or more unique levels. And service does not only send high urgency incidents. Now let's go with service has alert grouping turned on. So again, I'm going to switch back to the code. And let's add to this service alert grouping, uh, an alert grouping parameter. And for that, I'm going to switch to the Terraform documentation for PagerDuty Service. And for that, we can use alert grouping parameters. Alert grouping parameters, yes, this one, because alert grouping attribute like this is deprecated, and the new way, well, this is not new, but the current one is alert grouping parameter, which is a block of code. So I will have to enter here alert grouping parameter, and here I can say I will set the alert grouping parameter to intelligent, For that, intelligent. Setting it to intelligent allows you to skip the configuration for the config block for alert grouping parameters, that config. So I will only put alert grouping to intelligent, and this should be enough to meet that other standard. So I'm going to apply it, auto approve. Okay, it's applied. Refresh. We have now 4 standards met. Service has at least one change integration. Let's skip this. Service has at least one business service dependency. Okay, let's tackle this, and we can solve this. This is very important because it is always important that you consider or use PagerDuty as your supporting tool for incident management. And the incident management task should be related with a business case in your organization. So for this case, I'm going to create a hypothetical business case called Next Unicorn App. Yes, I will use that name. So for Next Unicorn App, I'm going to say that this is going to be PagerDuty Business Service. I'm going to call it Next Unicorn App. And this, it's going to need a name, which is, of course, Next Unicorn App. This is going to be my my business case, and as a business case, and its abstraction at PagerDuty level, I will need this business case to have as supporting technical services. Those supporting technical services will be the web that will host, or the web server or web app that will serve the Next Unicorn App. So I'm going to say that this business service will need of business service dependency. So I'm going to configure now PagerDuty service dependency. I'm going to say that this is Next Unicorn App Web. But this web is going to be dependency. Let's move to the service dependency documentation. Okay, is this? It's just easier to just copy and paste this. So I'm going to paste this here. We'll say that this business service is Next Unicorn App.id, and this is a business service. For the service, I said that I want to establish the relation of dependency between the Next Unicorn App business case and its actual web app or web server that could present incidents, and I will be able to solve those incidents through the web server technical service. So I'm going to say here that I want this to be the web service DF local service. And this one is the same. Let me take the chance here to give you a trick here. For business services, business service. Okay, for business services, the type returned by the type property of a business service, it is not exactly this. So it's better to put here just business service, as is stated here on the type attribute documentation for service dependencies. For all the other technical services, you could use the type and it will work. But for technical services, it won't. So you have here like the option to do it like in this way, or to put it like here, like saying just service, it will work too. But because I already have because I know that this is going to work well, I'm going to follow this approach of referencing the actual service that I am declaring as supporting service of the Next Unicorn app. So I'm going to save this, and now I'll go ahead and apply it again with Terraform Apply Auto Approve. And this will help us with two things. First, I want to meet one more standard. Now we are meeting 5 out of 9 standards. We have, with the last change, we have met service has at least one business service dependency. But additionally, we have now in the business service directory this new business case, which is Next Unicorn app. And for Next Unicorn app, if I check, give me a second. Yes, service graph. If I check the service graph, I will notice that this business case, which I called Next Unicorn app, is being supported by this technical service. Receive an incident, this business case will be affected too. And that is that is the purpose of defining these dependencies between business cases um, and technical services, because you can have stakeholders for your business case while having incident responders for your technical services. And in the way to describe this whole graph for a real use case, you will have a lot more technical services than only these two business and technical services. And maybe at the end of the graph, which will be maybe have a business service, that business service won't be like impact by the failure on technical service on the middle. Here it is not like possible to see that in action, because there are only two. So if they are dependent, one the if this technical service receive an incident, the business service will be immediately impacted. but that is the importance of having a well-described business and technical service relation in your PagerDuty environment. So let's continue with this. And now let's try to meet this other standard, which is service has at least one technical service dependency. So in this case, we have a good use case to represent and meet this standard, which is the other service called DB service DF local. This DB or database is supporting in a real use case will be supporting the web server or the web app. So we can establish here on the configuration that the database service is supporting the web service. So in order to do that, I'm going to copy this, come down here, and say that web server DB. This is the dependency that I want to establish now with this. So instead of saying that this is a business service, I'm going to say that this is a PagerDuty service, and the dependent service is web server, sorry. And here, I'm going to copy this. Oops. Yes. Like this. We can say that here is type. Down here is db.id. And this is db.type. So with this, we are going to set up the dependency between the service, the web server, and its DB and its DB database. So I'm going to apply this again. Okay. Configuration applied. We should be, yes. Now we're meeting 6 out of 9 standards. And if we again check this service graph, okay, we now have this. The next unicorn app is being supported by a web server, and the web server is being supported by a database, which is database or DB server. Again, switching back to service directory, we have more standards to meet. And the service has an extension or add-on. Okay. Well, let me check if I have enough resources here to also configure this. API, non-email integration, one change integration, connect, code deployment. No, this specific standard can be configured using Terraform, because our Terraform provider is not capable of setting up connect code. This is chain integrations. Service has an extension or add-on. Yes, we can extension or add-on streamline incident response and communication process. Okay, I already have a Slack integration here. Yes. So I believe I can set this up. Add extension. Let me look here for, now these are integrations, PagerDuty extension with a service. Okay. PagerDuty extension, schema, PagerDuty extension. Oh, here we have it. Okay, let's configure this one. So I will need of the extension schema and the reference to the PagerDuty service. So first thing first is to grab the ID to the extension. So for that, I'm going to set up a Slack extension. I'm going to paste this here. And I will say that this Slack, and the name of this, well, in order to know the name of this extension, we can go to the PagerDuty API reference and look for the extension schemas, list extension schemas. And if I limit 100, offset of 0, let me send this API request. Yes, look at this. This is very important. Every time you try to use our API reference documentation and you want to make a get API call, this authorization token that you see here is a test API token that only allows you to make a get requests. You can do like put or pause API requests. For that, you will need API token associated to a real PagerDuty account. But if you need to do a query about some API through a get method, you will be able to do it with this test API token. So using this, I just have queried for the extensions schemas available, the first 100. So let me look here for the word Slack. It looks like it is not here. Let me take this to my editor. I'm going to save this. I'm going to put this here. Say Slack. No, in this page is not Slack. So I'm going to say here an offset of 100 and request for the next page. Oh, what happened? Let me check if there are. Oh, there aren't more. So a Slack should be here. This is so unexpected. I was expecting here to find the Slack schema, but maybe it's something that I am not aware of. Let me do this in another way. I will use this one. Give me a second. Yes, I'm going to use the same from the example because I can't find here the schema for Slack. Maybe it has to do something with the Slack integration itself. So I'm going to paste this here. PagerDuty user, I already have one. I already have an escalation policy, also a service. So I'm going to set this extension, paste here, Slack, endpoint URL, generic webhook URL, my web app extension, the service. I'm going to ignore this because I won't use this extension either way. So I'm going to say here that web server TF local ID is the service targeted to receive the extension. So restrict any, resolve files, access token. Let's see if this works. Because I'm realizing I don't have like the full information for setting up this, but let's see if we can meet the standard. In a real case, I will have to. I will need all this information, but right now, for the sake of the time, and don't plan to set up all that. So Terraform apply again. That should work. That might be failing if I try to use the extension itself. So if I move to the service directory, yes, we are meeting another standard, which was the one for having an extension. Yes, this one. And at least one API integration. So this is the procedure to meet all the standards. If you continue like this, you will be meeting all them. But if there are some of these standards that you don't need to meet because you actually don't have an API integration for the service, or as I said before, in the service graph or in your service dependencies, this is the last service on the change, so it doesn't need any other supporting services. The solution to that is to enter to the service standards report and go to settings and add some sections to the standards. Let's add the section to service has at least one change integration and one API integration. I'm going to add exclusions to those standards for that service. So for they were service description, change integration, this one applies to all services, selected services, service is not. With service is not, I'm going to select this, which means, well, I want the standards to be applied to all except this services. So I'm going to say yes. And the other is at least one API integration, the same. Oh, sorry, it's here. Select the services. So service is not. Web service TF local. After saving this, we will have a totally healthy, based on best practices for setting up a technical service, fully configured service, which has a description, an escalation policy with two or more unique levels, which has an extension or add-on, which has alert grouping turned on, does not send only high urgency incidents, at least has one service dependency and one technical service dependency. So these services, we could say that is well configured and will do its job in the incident resolution workflow for this technical service. And at the end, you can also use these standards and change their description to be more specific for your organization. Let's say, give me a second. Description, edit description. No, it's here. Sorry. Here, you can go here and change the description to be more focused in your organization use cases. Use maybe some reference documentation on the on for the case of the description, maybe some link to a documentation, to an internal documentation describing the convention for declaring the description of a service, what is the pattern to follow in order to have at least two unique levels in the escalation policy associated to the service. Like I said before, maybe one of the pattern for an escalation policy is, if you don't have anyone else to assign to the escalation policy, the two levels should be the incident responder and the manager, maybe, or the account administrator, which is well, if necessary, could be the PagerDuty administrator, and so on and so forth. This is the place where you can enrich these descriptions, and you can again declare some internal documentation or external documentation URLs describing this further to help your PagerDuty users to follow these standards and do their best for meeting them. So I'm going to now, after this, you can also make use of this description to establish the conventions to exclude some services from some standards, like we did before. If there is a service that is at the bottom of the chain in a service dependency graph, well, you can establish that. You can establish that on the service has at least, and this one, service has at least one technical service dependency. Well, you can state here, if the service is at the end of the the bottom or at the end of the chain, you can ask for an exclusion of this service to this standard, something like that. With this, yes, I can say that this will be it for service standards. And our Terraform configuration for meeting the standards. This can also be refactored in a way that you create a module for your organization, a Terraform module for your organization, where all these standards could be more easily met just following a repeatable Terraform configuration, having at the end a hill tier service directory with green green standard indicators in the list. So before wrapping up, I will destroy all this configuration, destroy, auto approve. Okay, this can be here doing its job. And to wrap up, I want to quickly remind you that on January 2024, we will be having our next Terraform Roundtable, and we hope to see you there. This is again the link for you to register. And remember that Terraform Time is being streamed every Wednesday at 4 p.m. and 1 p.m. Pacific time. So I'm looking forward to see you again next week. Bye bye.